Here's Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Genesis. Now here's Kirby's Avalanche on the Super Nintendo. It's literally the exact same game. How did this happen, and how come there was no lawsuit? Let's take a look. What's going on? It's Podrez, coming at you with another video. Okay, we're going to be talking about the Puyo Puyo games. If that sounds interesting to you, hit that subscribe button right there. Trying to see if I can hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Only you can help me get there. And we have an amazing community on our Discord server. Just go to discord.podrez.net. I'll also put a direct link right in the description. Okay, we're going to waste no time. Let's get started. Founded in 1982, the company Compile began making games for the MSX and SG-1000. A majority of their earlier titles were developed by them, but published by other companies. We would see the beginning of a few of their franchises. Lunar Ball might look like a basic game of pool, but there's some unique features. There's multiple stages, and you can adjust the friction. The lower the friction, the longer the balls will move before they stop. It's not an extraordinary game, but it's decent. Xanac is a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up. I say vertically very loosely because it's the MSX. I don't have much to say about it, but it's an ambitious game for such a limited console. In 1985, with the increasing popularity of the Famicom, they started developing games for that console. Of course, they did port over some of their MSX games, but they also developed a few standout titles. Guardian Legend, for example, is a hybrid between a shoot-'em-up and an exploration game. In the top-down segments, you can collect upgrades that will help you during the shooter stages. I'm not into exploration games, but I respect what Compile accomplished here. Gunnak is another shoot-'em-up with some cool ideas. You can collect numerous weapon upgrades, which are stackable. If you make it far enough without dying, you'll have a super powerful weapon. Even if you do get hit, it doesn't take long to rebuild. The graphics are also fantastic, with lots of color on screen. This game is proof that Compile is capable of making excellent work. With inspiration from Tetris and Dr. Mario, Compile released Puyo Puyo for the Famicom Disk System and later the regular Famicom. It's a falling blocks puzzle game where you must connect 4 of the same colors together. They don't have to be in a row, they just have to be touching. With clever placement, you're able to perform combos which give you extra points. There's a few gameplay modes. There's Endless, where you play until you lose, and it gets harder as you progress. In the mission mode, you have to perform a certain task for each level, whether it's getting a certain amount of combos or clearing blocks of a specific color. The most ambitious feature, in my opinion, is the 2-player mode. Not only can you play against someone, which is uncommon for a Tetris-style game, but you can even inflict garbage on them. This game is bare bones compared to what we would get later on, but it's a good work in progress. Compile would take things to the next level in 1982. With help from Sega, they published Puyo Puyo in the arcade, but this version focuses more on competitive gameplay. The game is divided into stages where you have to defeat the opponent by inflicting garbage on them. We basically saw a prototype of this in the Famicom version, but now it's the main game. The characters are memorable and have unique designs. The music is fantastic, and I love that you hear a different line for each combo that you get. Overall, I really like the direction they went with this game. They took the typical Tetris formula and turned it into something original. The Genesis got a nearly perfect port of the game. I really can't tell the difference when looking at gameplay footage. Even the music is identical. This may not be surprising though, because the arcade version used Sega's own hardware. The only downgrade is that some of the voices were removed. Overall though, I'm impressed at how well the Genesis version turned out. It's nearly the exact same game. Compile would also port it over to the Super Nintendo. The gameplay and controls feel exactly the same, but the sound and music are drastically different because it's not on Sega's hardware anymore. In my opinion, the Genesis version sounds better, but it's still okay. On the plus side though, all of the digitized speech from the arcade version is still intact. Overall, you really can't go wrong with either version. I do give a slight edge to the Genesis version though because of the music. Puyo Puyo would be released in the US, but with some drastic changes. Sega was afraid that the game would not be popular in its current state, so they replaced the characters and changed around the graphics. Meet Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. The characters are all from Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Most of them are only seen in the first episode, but some of them, like Scratch and Grounder, are recurring characters. The graphics were otherwise not changed that much from the original Puyo Puyo. Some tracks were even reused from that game. I think it's understandable that Sega made these changes because the characters from the Japanese version might not have appealed to Western audiences. I'm not surprised Sega did this. I am surprised about the next game though. For an unknown reason, the Super Nintendo version of Puyo Puyo was also modified for its US release. Compile worked out a deal with Nintendo and Hale to publish Kirby's Avalanche. That's right, the exact same game featuring IPs of the competitors. Unlike Mean Bean Machine, which only received minor graphical changes, this one was modified a bit more. The stage graphics are more reminiscent of a Kirby game. The music has all been replaced with ones from Kirby games and no longer uses any from Puyo Puyo, except for one. There are still some remnants from Puyo Puyo though. The title screen looks like the original game, and even the menu looks similar. Nonetheless, at least we still got Puyo Puyo in some form. While it's never been confirmed, I assume Nintendo wanted the game modified for the same reason that Sega did. They probably didn't think the original Puyo Puyo would appeal to Western audiences. I do wonder if Nintendo knew about Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine or if Sega knew about Kirby's Avalanche. I wouldn't be surprised if Compile got a kick out of it. Compile and Sega teamed up once again for Puyo Puyo 2. This one made some drastic changes to the gameplay. Instead of fighting each opponent one by one, you only have to clear a certain amount of points to advance to the next level. If you obtain enough points later on, you can skip the remaining opponents on that level. This also means that the game can be shorter if you're really good at it. The controls have been improved slightly. You can now turn your pieces even when they're wedged in narrow passageways. You can also cancel out your opponent's garbage if you combo on them the same turn. These changes mean that the games might last longer and you're less likely to make mistakes. Puyo Puyo 2 has more graphical variety. The original game only had 2 stage backgrounds in the competition mode, but this one has 8. While I do think this is a better game in most aspects, I prefer the original where you fight each opponent in order. I don't like how you can skip opponents by earning enough points. Still though, it's a phenomenal game. Unsurprisingly, the Genesis version is a nearly perfect iteration. Every feature from the arcade version is still intact, and the controls and gameplay feel exactly the same. Like with the first game, Sega's own hardware was used in the arcade version, so the music sounds nearly identical. The voiceovers were kept in the game this time around, but were compressed. If you're looking for the arcade experience, you really can't do better than this. The Super Famicom version was renamed the Super Puyo Puyo 2. The gameplay and graphics are exactly the same, with the only minor difference being the music. Some tracks were remixed and actually sound better than the original game, in my opinion. The game includes cutscenes that were not in the arcade or Genesis version. Otherwise, you're getting the exact same game. For whatever reason, Compile felt the need to release another version on the Super Famicom, this one called Super Puyo Puyo 2 Remix. The music was changed, but I actually think it sounds worse. The biggest change is the addition of a 4-player mode without the need of a multi-tap. In my opinion, these minimal changes did not warrant a second game. Surprisingly, Puyo Puyo 2 was released on the Game Boy. I expected the gameplay to be stiff and choppy, but it actually plays very well. The controls are smooth, and all the features from the arcade version are here. The cutscenes have mountains in the background, which actually looks better visually. I'm honestly impressed with how well this turned out. My only complaint is the Game Boy's limited color palette. The developers had to use checkerboard patterns and stripes for some of the pieces. I had trouble telling the difference and would constantly mix them up. It is still a great version though, considering the hardware limitations. Unlike the first game, none of Puyo Puyo 2's ports were ever brought over to the US, nor were there any ROM hacks that replaced the characters. I find it interesting that Kirby's Avalanche was released after Puyo Puyo 2, but they still decided to base it off the first game. Maybe they thought the second game was too complex. Compile continued the Puyo Puyo series with a few more games. Puyo Puyo Sun went back to the basics where you fight each opponent in order. If you didn't like the second game as much, you might prefer this one. Puyo Puyo 4 made some drastic changes to the formula. The graphics have a less cartoony and more realistic look. You can also perform special moves. These can be nice if you have a ton of garbage on your side and you want to remove it. This might seem gimmicky, but it can help make games longer. It's worth mentioning that Sega was involved in the development of a few Puyo Puyo games, but they didn't actually have the rights to the property. This would all change when Compile went bankrupt in 2003. From there, Sega acquired the rights and became the sole developer and publisher of the series. Sega would put their own spin on the series. Puyo Pop Fever, for example, is similar to the original game but with a new gimmick. You have a meter on the right which gradually fills up as you clear more pieces. When it's full, you go into Fever mode where you can easily inflict tons of garbage on the opponent. Speaking of garbage, if there's any building up on your side, you'll want to activate Fever mode as soon as possible so you can reduce it. The garbage won't actually drop on your side as long as you keep clearing pieces. I actually really like this game. It seems like the older games were all about who could make the biggest combo, but in this game, you're still alive even if the opponent sets up a nasty combo. With Sega now owning the rights to the Puyo Puyo series, this would create an interesting situation with Wii Virtual Console. In 2006, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine was released on it, which I fully expected. What I did not expect though was that Kirby's Avalanche was released that following year. I'm glad that Sega was lenient and allowed Nintendo to publish their version of the game. Another welcomed addition was the Genesis version of Puyo Puyo 2. This was the first time the game was released outside of Japan, and this was actually how I first played it. To summarize, the first Puyo Puyo game featured original characters, but was modified for the Western release because Sega didn't believe it would appeal to that region. The Super Famicom version was also modified to feature characters from the Kirby franchise, most likely for the same reason. I'm glad we at least got some version of the game. If you made it this far in the video, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right there. And have you played Puyo Puyo? What version did you grow up with? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.